Angel Heart Radio programs should not be used to replace your legal or medical advice, nor your own sound judgment. In truth, nothing can dim your magnificence. You are a divine spark, a universal light. You are here on purpose. You are part of a divine plan. And it's our joy to support you. We're here to celebrate you. Welcome to Angel Heart Radio. Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is brought to you by AngelLight777.com. A Divinely Ordered Life with spiritual teacher Deb Goldberg on Angel Heart Radio starts now. Angel Heart Radio.
Welcome everyone to A Divinely Ordered Life on Angel Heart Radio. I am your host, Deb Goldberg, and it is a great pleasure for me to be here with you today. And it's an honor to serve you in the highest way that I can by bringing you messages of divine love and blessings for your life. You are dearly loved, cherished, and blessed. We have a great show for you tonight. Excuse me. Things didn't start out exactly the way that I planned it to. There was no photo at the beginning, but it's okay. Today we're going to be talking about swim the lake before you row the boat. Awaken a child's successful mindset. Unleash his confidence and give him the foundation for a great life is a book written by Deb Canja. Deb is an attorney, success coach, and the founder of Bridges for Kids and Success for Kids to help parents and educators find the information they need to help the kids they love. In her new book, Swim the Lake Before You Row the Boat, Deb describes the Flying Eagle Formula, a unique program to create within a child a success mindset that will provide the foundation for all other life success. Based on 27 years of working with over 3,000 young boys and now with over 60 years of results, the Flying Eagle Formula uses principles found in both Seth and A Course in Miracles to create powerful core beliefs within our children that attract future success. At the same time, it encourages parents, teachers, grandparents, coaches, and mentors to lighten up on themselves, embrace do-overs, and focus their efforts where it really counts and will make an actual difference. Deb Canja is a attorney, an author, a success coach, and founder of Bridge for Kids and Success for Kids. Welcome, Deb. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thanks. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Oh, you know, I had the pleasure of reading the first 4 or 5 chapters of your book, and it makes me want to read more. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I think we chatted a little bit, and I said, you know, I wish I'd had this roadmap when I was raising my own kids. And, you know, what's so ironic about it is that I was a student of Seth for 20 years, and it's certainly before I had my kids. And then I've been a student of A Course in Miracles for a very long time, maybe 26 years. And somehow putting that all together and applying it to parenting kind of didn't occur to me. So I wish I'd had the roadmap that would have laid it out in the way that we've been able to do it with this book.
Well, I think a lot of people would say that. In fact, I said it to myself. You know, I said it in what we were talking about when we just got started. And, you know, I think that many of us have children when we're so young that we really don't know what we're doing. And we wish that we had a roadmap. Our roadmap typically is what our parents did, right? Or what our parents should have done, or what you didn't want them to do, you do more of, and of the opposite because you didn't like it as a child. And so, you know, it just takes time, I think, as you evolve in your own awareness of Like, where do you get a map? And I know there's a lot of people that also read, young parents that are looking for all kinds of ways of what's the best roadmap, like what was it, Dr. Spock or yeah, a long time ago, that everybody was reading that because they were looking for some kind of roadmap. But the roadmap that you bring also comes from spiritual enlightenment.
Yeah.
And having consciousness involved.
It's so interesting that you say that, because you mentioned I'm an attorney, and I sort of went at parenting in the same way that I went after my attorney work and for everything else I do. I mean, I was all in, just all in. And so I was a parenting junkie. I read everything I could find about what's the best way to raise your kids, and every article I could find in the magazine, 5 things that you should do, 4 things you should never say, flashcards and no flashcards, and allowance and no allowance, all of that. I just did everything. I coached Science Olympiad. Was the Cub Scout den mother. I did everything. I was doing. But what I ultimately came to realize, as you said, we evolve. What I ultimately came to realize is that it's not what you do. Of course you have to do things, but that's not the main focus. It's not what you do. The most important thing, the thing that creates all future success, all future results, is what does your child think and feel about himself or herself from what you do, what they're going through. What are those internal beliefs they're starting to form within them that act like a time machine? In the present moment, it creates the future. Whatever they're thinking and feeling about themselves today attracts future situations that replicate. The people will be different, the situations will be different, but the feelings that they have about themselves, it will validate whatever they already believe about themselves. So if we can instill those powerful core beliefs right from the beginning, then it changes their whole future. That is what's most important. It wasn't all those things I was doing. Those were good. I mean, yeah, those were good. And my kids turned out great, mostly. But despite the kind of big mistakes I made, but yeah. And so in the book, what's so interesting, and I know there's a whole story, and I can get into that. There's a whole story about how this came about. Yeah, so
go ahead, tell it. We want to hear the story, how this all came about, because I think it's a great story.
Okay, so it started with my father. He was orphaned at the age of 11. His father had been gone since he was 3, and it was right before World War II. It was right before the Great Depression. His mother went back to Europe for some reason and never came back. And so they were in the Great Depression. People were out of work. There wasn't food, and so his siblings. He was living with older, sort of step siblings, and they decided they couldn't care for him, and they sent him to live at the YMCA when he was like 11 or 12, and he lived there until he graduated from high school and on his own. And I know it was very rough. I know it was difficult. It was a place to live. And it gave him some foundations, but it was quite difficult. Somehow within him, he had, because he was relying on himself, he excelled. He drove himself. He knew that he was the catalyst. Whatever he did was what was going to make the difference. And he earned a scholarship to the University of Michigan, an athletic scholarship. And he went to school. He became a teacher. He became an All-American diver and swimmer. But what was interesting is that throughout this experience that he had, he came to some beliefs about what a boy needs to have a successful life. And when he saw this, before my parents ever even bought a house, they saw an ad for a summer camp, and he wanted to buy a summer camp for boys. And they did it. And what's interesting about them, my mom, she was my co-author in the book, and she wrote She said, I don't know why we thought we could do it, but we did. And that's part of what we try to teach also, is what you think you can do is what can come to pass. You have to have that core belief that you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes the difference. And so the camp, so they started this camp, Camp Flying Eagle, and it ran for 27 years. What was amazing about it, and boy, it was a boys' camp. So in the book, even though the principles are universal, they apply to girls, they apply to boys, they apply to, I'm a product of it, and I can tell that I've internalized all these core beliefs that it teaches. But adults, it's the same for all of us. But because our experience was with boys, and because we were so extraordinarily successful in instilling these core beliefs in boys, then all the examples and everything else we have in the book are about boys. So, but what was so amazing is that after the camp closed, and my mom reached out to campers for some words, some memories that they might have, they just came flooding in, and the stories came in about how the camp had given these men the foundation for their success. And it just story after story after story about how instrumental it had been. And it was a surprise, because you go through your life and you do the best you can. You don't really know how much you've impacted people, if you have or you haven't. But after reading all of these letters, hundreds of letters, my mom decided that she wanted to capture what that was, capture the magic of what had happened. And so when she was 83, she sat down. It was like 20 years after the camp had closed, maybe even more. She sat down at her computer and she just started to type. And for 2 summers, she just typed out everything she remembered. And then she gave it to me to do something with. And we both realized, it was my parents, believe it or not, it was my parents who introduced me to Seth. So they were already of that mindset, already of the belief that your thoughts create your reality. What you think and believe is what will come to pass. What your perceptions are of the world is what you will get back. And that's really the story of how the book came to be, and why the focus of this book is different from there are a lot of terrific parenting books out there. I mean, there's some really, really great ones. But this focus is just a little bit different. It focuses on what we believe is the one thing that makes everything else fall into place.
Mm-hmm. And that's amazing, because being raised by conscious parents makes a huge difference. And then to apply those principles to you as children, and then to a camp, right, Boy Scout camp, to all of these wonderful kids that joined you, and get validation for it afterwards, to find out that these principles work, to be conscious and setting intentions. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, is that there are 10 principles to this formula that you have used, the Flying Eagle formula, right? And that was all about harnessing the power of a successful mindset, what you're talking about. So can you help us understand what those principles are?
Yeah, first let's talk about, first it's how it works.
Okay.
Why it works. And so it's all about first understanding that it works because the core beliefs that you have about who you are is what attracts future situations that validate what you already believe. So it's real important to realize that in the present moment, you are creating the future. Whatever you think and believe in this present moment about yourself, about what other people think about you, will bring you the future situations that give you the same message. So those core beliefs that we want to instill when the kids are young, really at any time, but you have to work a little bit harder after you get older, because as you're young, you absorb messages that somehow they run in the background of your mind and you're not even aware of them. And so uncovering them becomes harder because they just become part of what you believe is true.
Right.
So when kids are young, it's easier to instill those kind of core beliefs that include one of the most powerful is I can do it. I can try something new and I can be successful at it. I can figure it out. I can figure my way through. Another really important one is people like me. People respect me. I have something to offer to the world. There's a purpose and a place and a reason for my being here. I can figure things out. Once you have those very powerful core beliefs, you pretty much can tackle anything. Your experiences in life will validate those core beliefs. So that's the first thing, is understanding what it is and how it works. Another important part for a parent is understanding what is their own definition of success. They have to get really clear on what it is they're trying to accomplish as parents or as teachers or as mentors or anybody who's working with kids. You have to have some understanding of what is the end result you hope to see. What does it look like? Because that helps you focus and get back to how you're going to handle different situations. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I have a question because I was thinking about trying to raise kids and instill those type of those principles, those visions for your kids. Now, I could go back to when I raised kids and felt like I didn't have that within my own self. Like maybe I was unsure of myself, or I wasn't confident. And so if I didn't trust my own self, how do I instill those principles without my kids picking up on what really truly I feel inside about myself? Like if I don't believe in myself, how do I teach my kids to believe in their self?
Well, one of the really interesting things that we learn from this entire experience, and even myself, raising my own kids, I clearly didn't understand all of my subconscious or unconscious motivations that I ended up passing on to my kids. But here's the interesting thing. Even without understanding what my own personal motivations might be, had I had this roadmap, I would have understood that my focus, the thing that I really wanted to understand about my kids, was what were they thinking and feeling about themselves.
Right.
Not was I doing enough of the right things, family meals or family meetings, or
right.
making sure I was reading to them every night, or were they going to, outside activities? Were they going to build the right kind of resume for the right kind of college and all that? That wasn't important, but those were the things that I thought I was supposed to focus on.
Right.
But had I known what I really should have been focusing on, even though I didn't understand all of my own motivations, I at least know how to focus on. I at least know how to look at a list of things and understand, okay, this is what I'm supposed to try to figure out, and this is where I want to go. So as imperfect as you might be, you can still make an enormous difference. You can make a huge difference.
And I think a lot of that is from also being heart-centered, because you are heart-centered in whatever you're carrying out, that you want this for your children, you want this for the campers. And so being heart-centered, I would imagine, kind of takes over rather than all those other subconscious things that you might believe about yourself, and still produces what you actually believe, your philosophy. So I think that that's probably what was all part of your family. And what you did is you were heart-centered in what your true belief was of what you wanted to give others.
It's interesting. So in the beginning of the book, we talk about my parents wrote up a mission statement and a vision statement that guided them through the entire camp process. And it wasn't, I mean, they bought the camp in 1956. The first year was 1957. I mean, the Seth book didn't come out till, the first Seth books didn't come out until, you know, well, they didn't read them until 78. So they'd already been running the camp for, you know, almost 20 years. And yet they started with a vision and a mission statement that helped, that guided them to the results that they wanted to come up with. So even though they didn't state it in the way that we're putting it in the book, the way they operated was from that heart-centered place where they truly cared about the kids. They truly, it was really important to them that the kids experience success. Success was very, that's why we call it a success mindset. And I know the word success gets a bad rap in some circles. You know, we're not supposed to be pushing the kids to be successful as if it's something. We have a very holistic view of what success is. You know, because when the men told us how successful they'd been, they were relating things like they were successful husbands and fathers and community members, as well as businessmen and teachers and all these wonderful things. But it was very holistic. They felt good about them. They liked themselves. They felt good about who they were and what they were doing, and they had fulfilling lives. And that's kind of how we define success. But so my parents had this vision and mission that they started with, and they shared it with everyone who worked at the camp. And that, what we say about the vision and mission statement is that it helps the adults get on board with what you're trying to do. It's not really about, you know, it's what you want for the kids, but it's really important because it helps the adults get on board.
I think that that's amazing, because I even remember myself in first parenting, most of it was flying by the seat of my pants, right? I didn't have a vision. I didn't have a philosophy. I just knew what I didn't want to do. I knew some things I did want to do. And they were all based on like my own needs of like what I didn't get as a child or whatever. But they weren't put in this way of really saying, this is what I want for my child, that goes way past than what I'm just looking at in this moment. So I really love the fact that, you know, because I think all new parents should do that, is because that's where you find out, right, when you start raising kids, that all of a sudden you have two different ways of parenting.
You need to be on the same page. Yeah.
Right. So
you know what? But I'll tell you what, even if you're not on the same page, you still need to do it. You
yes.
still need to. And here's the other interesting thing that I just thought of as we're talking, that, you know, I felt I wanted to be the best parent I could possibly be. I was really motivated to be a good parent, whatever that was. And so that's what drove me to try to do, and plus my dad's words, if you're going to do a job, do it right. I mean, that was like in the back of my mind all the time. So, you know, I was just driven. And that's why I was a parenting junkie. But I got to tell you something. When I look back at it now, I felt so responsible for these little guys. So responsible. And I really think that a lot of what I did was driven by fear. Fear of doing the wrong thing. Fear of not doing enough of the right things. Fear of something happening to them if I didn't figure out what I needed to know ahead of time, because something might go wrong. And what if I didn't do this right? And you know, fear is never a great way to start. And if I'd had this approach, I would have been able to come at it from, not from a place of fear, like so responsible and afraid I'm going to miss something, but from a place of confidence that I knew that what I was doing was the thing that was going to make all the difference, that was going to give them the confidence that they needed to tackle everything that would come along. It would be a completely different approach, and whatever, you live and learn.
But you're here to bring this to fruition so that other parents can have what you learned, right?
Yeah.
And you learned what really works.
Yeah.
And there is nothing better than having your child have self-esteem and know how wonderful they are, and that they're good enough, and that they're worthy, and that they can tackle new things, and that that they have support in showing them how to do that. So so all of the stuff that you went through led you up to this moment, right? Like it has for all of us, is that we couldn't teach these things if we didn't experience them. But what a great way to have an approach and write down the philosophy and the mission and the vision for your child, not just in their childhood, but in their adulthood.
And in their adulthood, yeah. You
Mm-hmm.
know, well, a couple things come to mind as we're talking. One is that, if it were as easy as reading, which I tried to do, read an article about these are the things that statistically show that successful kids had parents who did these things, right? And then I'd look at the list and I go, okay, I can do this and I can do that one. I mean, if it were that easy that we could all do those things and our kids would turn out great, then it wouldn't be a problem, but that's not how it works. And so there's definitely thought to it and some creative thinking that goes into this, which we explain in the book, because every kid's different and they react to situations differently. And so figuring out what is the thing, you have to actually analyze your kid and figure out what is the thing that's going to make the difference for them. And that's how it works and why it works. And so go ahead.
No, yeah, because each kid's different, right?
Because each kid is different, and so you tailor it to your own child. Someone like, I'll give you an example. When I was raising my kids, the big thing was family dinners. Most kids who were successful and their families had family dinners. They all sat down and ate together. Okay, so I tried that. Now listen, first of all, I'm not a very good cook. My best, I made up menus and everything else, but it wasn't that great. And and then okay, well, I'll just be totally frank. So I was divorced and remarried, and it wasn't a great situation. So my significant other, ex now, would come to the dinner table sometimes and be in just a terrible mood, and it would ruin the whole dinner. It was not a happy time. And so we were having a family dinner and it was lousy. So family dinner was not the answer. Everybody sitting down for family dinner wasn't the answer. What was the message my kids were getting from that? I would have done better to take them to McDonald's.
Right.
And the family dinner and scoop them up and take them to McDonald's. That would have been far better.
Right. That's such a good point, because things have to work for your family, and they don't always fit into all the different rules that people have given us to follow. That works for you. If your family and if you're not connecting at the table, then then what is it? You're just all present physically, but you're not connecting.
And so you have to ask, okay, what is the message that they are getting about themselves in this situation? And that, as I say, if I'd had that roadmap, I would have analyzed all these different situations much differently. So that's important.
Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit more about the roadmap of some other principles?
So achievement and recognition. Now, we were not a Boy Scout camp, but we did do, my dad liked the Boy Scout badges, awards that, you could win, the sash that kids get. And so we had awards and we had all these different activities. So it's an all activity camp. And so there were all these different activities that you could engage in, and then you could win awards. And it was up to the boys to decide what awards they wanted to win, and they were scheduled so that they could have an opportunity to try all these new different things. And then they had to decide if they wanted to earn an award. And what's so important about that is that the award signifies that you tried something new and you achieved a certain level of success in it or familiarity with it. And these awards, so then you'd earn the awards, but the recognition came every Friday night. There was what we call a council fire, and the kids were publicly recognized for what they had achieved during the week. And that's really important. A lot of times we don't want to recognize our kids for things that they should be doing. They should do that anyway. They should just do it.
Right.
Well, when we were writing the book, it occurred to me that think of all of the unbelievable numbers of recognition ceremonies we give to adults for stuff they should be doing anyway. Right. All people get awards for just doing their jobs, and yet sometimes we hold back the celebration and the recognition for our kids because we don't want them to think they're going to get rewarded for every darn little thing. But when you think about it, when you put it in the context of building a success mindset and of encouraging an effort to try something new, and then being recognized for sticking with it to a certain ability to achieve something within that, you have a whole different way of looking at it. You have that's part of a roadmap. It's a different, your priorities become different because what you're doing is building these powerful core beliefs, and there are specific ways in which you do it. So achievement and recognition is one way, and we have lots of examples of how that works. Not only how we did it, but then we also have action steps at the end of every chapter that give suggestions for what you might think about in doing that in your own family.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because you're showing that it matters that they show up, that they matter.
That they matter. That they matter, that they can achieve, that they can try things, they can do it, and you're recognizing that they made the effort and they achieved something. Mm-hmm. That builds within them the belief, I can do it. I can do it, and people recognize me. Other people know I can do it. That's the other thing it tells them. Not only can I do it, but other people know I can do it. That's important. Mm-hmm. So another area that we focus on is this idea of teamwork. And teamwork is important, not just because you feel like you belong, but it's that sense of camaraderie and that you had a purpose and that you contributed and that it was important that you were there. Those are important core beliefs. Mm-hmm. The belonging is important too, but really of being able to contribute together. And so we talk about how we did it at the camp and what those experiences are. And let me back up here a minute. You have to remember that these kids came to camp for 3 weeks or 4 weeks in the summer. Some kids came for 7 weeks. Most kids, I would say a lot of kids came for 2 or 3 years. Some kids came for much longer. But you're talking about a very, very short period of time in a child's life. And what was so amazing is 20 years after the camp closed, we had a camp reunion. And these men who were like in their, 50s and 60s, and the counselors were in their 70s, they came back and they still had their award sashes. They wore them, they brought them back. They had held on to these sashes that showed their accomplishment, that showed that they had something to contribute, that were very powerful reminders of those core beliefs that they formed. That was stunning to see.
And to actually know that you had them a handful of weeks,
Just a few weeks.
right? And that you were able to make that kind of impact.
And that's what we tell, that's part of what the book is about, is that you can make this extraordinarily powerful impact in just a really short period of time. If you know what you're trying to accomplish and you just have a roadmap to get there, it's amazing. And you know, it's easier for the younger kids. You are instilling these powerful core beliefs, and then they're not saddled with a lot of the insecurities that they might get, you know, without this kind of an approach. But for older kids, it seems to be, it's interesting, it's kind of the opposite, in that sometimes just a word or just a sentence or just a recognition of some sort can get them thinking differently about something they believed about themselves and can change it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes in just a very short encounter, you can make an incredible difference in a kid's life. You can help change a core belief that they have into something that's a lot more positive. So it's really interesting. When you focus on the core beliefs, magic happens.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. It's really powerful. And I had, you know, you had written the power to determine the path of our own success is within us. And teaching a child that it's not outside of them, that they have the power within them is amazing.
Yeah. And so another one of these ingredients that we focus on is, and we call it ensuring good behavior, and it's about structure and routine and sort of a rhythm. Now, you know, to be perfectly honest, I was not a very structured person, and I still, well, I don't want to say I still am not, because I'm very, very organized, and I'm one of these list people, you know, I love crossing things off the list, but I'm also quite spontaneous. And when I had my kids and I was working full time, you know, I just was just running and gunning all the time, you know, running and gunning and grabbing the kids and pulling them along with me, right?
Right.
But here's the thing about structure and routine. When you know what's coming next, it builds a certain confidence within you that you're on top of things and you can handle it and that you're aware and you've got this game figured out. When you don't know what's going to happen next, you're constantly wondering and feeling insecure about your own ability to handle anything. You don't know what do they want of me? You know, what do I need to do next? And so when you have a certain structure and a routine, we call that, it ensures good behavior, because kids naturally want to conform. Actually, all of us do. We all want to conform and follow the rules, whatever they happen to be. We all want to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very powerful motivator. And so we talk about how you can build structure and routine into the day. First, we talk about what our day looked like at the camp, but then how you can build that into a day to make a difference, because it gives a kid a real sense of confidence that they know what's coming and they're on top of it and that they can fit in. That's a powerful core belief.
Mm-hmm.
Believe that you are able to handle things because, yep, you can figure it out, and yep, you can fit in. That's an amazing core belief that if you project that out into the future, into the workplace,
Mm-hmm.
into the classroom.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That is really important. So was it you or your mom wrote about in the book called yourself a dragon slayer?
I was the dragon. That came from the program Parent to Parent.
Mm-hmm.
That I was a parent facilitator. That was a drug prevention program that I did. I think my kids were in middle school when I started teaching Parent to Parent. Yeah, and they gave me a little plaque that said I was now a dragon slayer. And the way that came out was they said in ancient maps, when the map makers had gotten to the edge of the known world that they could draw, they put dragons in the water out, and they said, there be dragons. And so that's sort of the unknown. What you don't know is out there.
Mhm.
And so it said that I was now qualified to be a dragon slayer because of what I'd learned. I could navigate the unknown. And it's really interesting because these core beliefs that we instill in the kids, that sort of makes them dragon slayers. They can go out and navigate the unknown waters because they have these powerful core beliefs that will bring them, that will attract situations that will validate what they believe.
Right, right. I love that. I thought that was great. The Dragon Slayer, confronting the unknown and having these plans, these core beliefs, that are taken in and that you can figure things out. I love what you're saying because, not a lot of people have been instilled with that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are still trying to unwind that. Even people my age, I go through that at times, and I think it's because, well, I guess you could call it ego talk. You have all that ego talk, and and if you haven't had all of these core principles instilled in you, you've listened to ego talk all your life instead of what you know to be true about yourself.
What you know to be true. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell you another kind of interesting one that we focused on, and we call it create a source of strength, and it's traditions. Now, people usually think traditions are like big things, like Christmas is a tradition, Hanukkah's a tradition, like whatever, those are traditions. But we make traditions out of the everyday because traditions give you a sense of belonging, that you belong to something, and it's a sense of familiarity, and it's a sense of security and belonging. And it's really amazing how you can create traditions out of like thin air. It's just something that you usually do, and you're going to do it more than once, and it can become a tradition. And you can make traditions very easily. You just have to first seize the opportunity, and then get a little silly or a little creative with it, and then do it again.
So can you give us some examples of what that might look like?
Yeah, so we had a tradition. We did this on the camp bus. Whenever we drove into the camp, whenever we hit the road that would drive into the camp, everybody sang this song at the top of their lungs. And it goes, we're here because we're here, because we're here, because we're here. That's the whole song. It just keeps going. And you scream it out the windows. Well, okay, that was a tradition. In fact, even after the camp closed, whenever our family drove into the driveway, we were yelling that song. It's just a goofy tradition that it's just an example of a thing, drive up north, and as you're driving up north, we would take kids to Mackinac Island on the camp bus. That would be a trip. And so it's like an hour and a half trip to get to the bridge, and then you got to go over the bridge. There's a certain point along the road where if you know where to look, you can spot the Mackinac Bridge, the little tips of rising above the trees. So the first person on the bus who spotted the bridge won a candy bar. That's a tradition,
Right, right.
Silly song, other silly songs that you have with your family can be a tradition. Or I remember seeing, my parents lived in Florida, and so we were in Michigan, and obviously we would go down there for holidays and whatever. And I saw this thing that my son wrote like in second grade and about traditions. And he said, our tradition was to go to Florida.
Right, right.
It was something that we did.
Uh-huh.
You can have, we said there were traditions by the week, traditions by the day, traditions by the season, traditions by the trip, if you take a trip. you know, if your family goes certain places, the trick is to find something that you're going to do again and then try to do something the same about it, so that it has a routine to it, or it has something that you always do and that you're doing together, and it becomes kind of this tradition. And having that creates a sense of belonging and a sense of security. And yeah, this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
The we, whoever the we is, the
Mm-hmm.
we do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I like that. So it could even be, you know, how people wake up in the morning and greet each other or say goodnight, or it could be all things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All things, you know.
Mhm.
Yes, there's so many, and we have lots of examples in the book of how you can form traditions, or what can really make the difference, and how you can build that into your everyday life. It doesn't have to be anything exotic. It's just
Mhm.
your everyday life. That can be, it could be doing the laundry on Tuesdays together, a team. That can be teamwork, you know, the contributing, the contributing to the family, but you do it together. You know, I remember um, being given chores to do. And we were just sort of given the chores to do. Well, that was good, because, you know, you learned that you had to do some chores, but it would have been so much better had we done chores together, because then that would have instilled with me that I was an important part of a team, that I
Mhm.
was contributing to the team, that we were working together as a team. And I didn't do that with my own kids because I was running and gunning and too busy. But
Mhm.
had I understood and had this roadmap, I could have dropped everything and done that, because of all the different things I would have been instilling by that one activity,
Mhm.
creating a tradition, even if it was a chore, creating
Mhm.
a tradition, creating the teamwork, creating the camaraderie, the sense of belonging, the sense of contributing. Because yes, you can do it alone. You can be told, yeah, okay, your job is to take out the trash, okay, or whatever it happens to be. But when you combine it, when you think about what it is you're really trying to accomplish, it can become that much more powerful. Yeah.
I agree. And doing it together, um, it just makes it nicer. You're helping each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And oh, there's so many here, and you know, I've got raise a creative problem solver. There's a specific approach for that, and then the best way to improve fun, the best way to improve results. How do you make things fun? And we've got lots of examples, because it's a proven thing that when people have more fun, they retain more. It embeds within them. They remember more, and so I think it's kind of hard for us as adults to think about how much fun we could have. But yes, you can build fun back into things, and it's really easy. I remember when we wrote the book, and boy, learning how to write a book was, well, that wasn't always fun, but but you know, I said, I remember sending it out to a parent group and saying, you know, please give me your feedback. And one of the comments I remember getting back was, um, boy, I can tell we need to build some more fun into our lives. It would be so easy. I just need to do it. And yeah, it isn't hard, but just thinking about it
Mhm.
would be a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. I think a lot of times we do have to redefine what fun is. I know I've had to, and spiritually, I was taught, you know, can we look at this as fun or look at that as fun, and instead of work,
Mhm.
that you're enjoying what you're doing, even though you might be learning something new and it might be frustrating at times, is redefining fun. Uh,
Redefine, you know, actually, that's a really good, we didn't even put that in. That's, I mean, that's really important. All we said is you can make things fun by do something different, unexpected,
mhm.
build anticipation, resist the impulse to criticize.
Mm-hmm.
sing silly songs. So you can kind of build a lot of that into,
Uh-huh.
just to make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, redefining what you do. I think that's really important for adults to
Mm-hmm.
redefine what we're doing and find the fun in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. That's been a whole lesson for myself. Um, you know, and it makes all the difference in the world when you are having fun doing what you're doing.
Doing what you're doing.
Mm.
You know, my kids were so, I mean, I laughed all the time. They were funny. I just thought a lot of what they did was just very funny.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like I said, I really wished that I had, because I was so, so dedicated to being wanting to be a good parent, wanting to do the right things. And now it's really our mission to try to share what we now know with our perspective, our greater perspective and hindsight, and with our more enlightenment, you know, with the studying that we've done, and after seeing all of the comments from the men,
Mm-hmm.
credit this as the foundation for their really wonderful lives, their happy lives, their fulfilling lives, that we want to share it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that you should share it. I think it's really important. Can you tell us a little bit about Bridges for Success and the two
Oh,
programs that you have
so Bridges for Kids.
for kids?
Bridges for Kids is a nonprofit organization that I started back in 2002. I was, because of my legal background and because I had a background in civil rights, I was recruited to become the executive director of what it's called the Parent Training and Information Center. Every state has one, and it trains parents of kids with disabilities and special needs how to advocate for their kids. So I became the executive director of Michigan's PTI, you know, and then, and that was a different organization. But that organization was pretty much solely focused on kids with low incidence disabilities, which would be your kids who are maybe had greater disabilities in the sense the Down syndrome and cerebral palsy and things like that. But there was this whole influx of other kids that were needing help at the time that had learning disabilities or attention deficit disorder that really didn't fit into that organization. And so I left that organization and started Bridges for Kids, which is a much more holistic approach. And so we created this, we became Michigan's grantee for Child Find, which was kids from birth to 3. People would call in and we would refer them to the school district that would handle, you know, that would provide services.
Mm-hmm.
So did that for 3 years. And in the meantime, Bridges for Kids, we built it into this huge online portal with anything that we thought we wanted to know as parents. We put on there information. So if it's like 2 o'clock in the morning and you're wondering where there's information about whatever topic it might be, we hope we have it. So that's what it's Bridges with the number 4kids.org. And we've been, it's all volunteer. We run it on a volunteer basis. It's been going for now, what, 18 years now?
Wow.
And my big project right now is to try to update the website, but it's so huge that that's a big chore. So I'm working on that. Success for Kids is the organization that we're using to share this message that we have, you know, in the book, in the book with Success for Kids. Now the publisher, the Success for Kids is on Facebook. But it's not the number 4. I first did it. It's Success FOR Kids.
Mm-hmm.
Did I do that right? Yeah. It's Success FOR Kids. But information about the book is really on the publisher website, which is Spencer White Publishing. So it's a little bit confusing, I guess, but Success for Kids is our sharing of how to embed a success mindset, really sort of the more metaphysical, spiritual kind of approach, mindset approach.
Mhm. That's great. And so it's for anybody, not people that just live in Michigan, right? It's across the board, the
Yeah,
world.
for Kids is a national, actually, we get people from all over the world asking
Mhm.
us to respond to inquiries from all over the place, but it's a national nonprofit. And then Success for Kids is not, you know, specific to Michigan either.
Mhm. Okay, well, that's good to know because, there's a lot of people out there on an awakened spiritual path that are looking for, um, parenting philosophies that fit in with spiritual principles or higher consciousness, being intentional in how you parent your children. So I think that's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I really hope so. And um, it's interesting. It was a labor of love to put this book together. There's a lot to. I know that people. I'll just digress a minute. People say, well, you can just write a book and you can put it up on Amazon and anybody can get it. There's a lot more to it than that, which
Yeah.
we learned along the way. But I'm really glad that we did it. And I have to say a little bit about my mom. She's pretty amazing. She's 92. She'll be 93 this year. And I think it's amazing that she sat down when she was 83 and started working on this book and just kept at it. Because she felt it was important to share, really important to share. And I'm real proud of her. She carries a copy around in her purse so that she can show it to people.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, at 92, it just shows you that you can be creative your
Yeah.
whole life,
Well,
right?
it shows you it's never too late to follow your dreams.
It's
To
never too late.
start something new, or
Hmm.
to believe you can do it,
Hmm.
and to
Yeah.
tack got that core belief that you can do it, then you just do it.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, he told me this really funny story just about a week ago. She's in assisted living. She decided to go to assisted living. She wanted to simplify her life. She was in assisted living and they had this Wii game, where you can do bowling. You can
Uh-huh.
do bowling. And she said she was bowling and doing miserably and nothing was happening. And then she said she remembered what was in the book. Sat there and she talked to herself. She said, I can do this. I can do this. And she got the highest score of everyone.
That's awesome.
So it works for all of us.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's like being your own coach, right?
Mhm.
Having that core belief that sticks with you through your life and that you can draw on it when you need it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, God bless your mom. I'm really thankful that she wrote this book too, and I think a lot of other people will be. So, Deb, can you tell people how to get in touch with you, where to find the book?
it's real easy to find if you just go on Amazon and you type in Canja, which is our last name. Which also, let me just warn you, I think means marijuana in some. I know it's chicken soup in Portuguese or in Brazil. But anyway, if you type in Canja, it's the first thing that comes up. That's
Mhm.
the easiest way that's how I find it. So you can buy it on Amazon. And that would be wonderful if people are so moved to check it out. And it's been really gratifying that I've had a lot of grandparents who say they buy it and they're sending it to their kids, or oh, there you go.
Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Me
And
too.
I'm a new grandparent. I've got a little 15-month-old grandson, and of course I shared it with my son. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'm real pleased to see they took it to heart.
Mhm.
I'm happy.
That's awesome. Now that's a tradition too, right? It would
Yeah,
be a family tradition.
absolutely.
Mhm. And if somebody wanted to contact you personally, how can they do that?
You know, if they go to the SpencerWhitePublishing.com, so it's SpencerWhitePublishing.com, there is a contact form in there for contacting the authors. So that works really well.
Mm-hmm.
I get that really easily. So that'll come to us, and I think that's probably the easiest way.
Okay.
They could, let me see. Deb@bridgesforkids.org, that works, but probably about the book and about this, probably the, let me see, contact@successfor, and that's going to be confusing. Let's just go with the SpencerWhitePublishing.com. That's going to be the easiest way.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, and we'll put that in, and you also have a link you want to give us for the 10 principles, correct? That we're going.
It's actually three ways to embed a success mindset.
Okay.
It's just three easy things you can do. It's a downloadable PDF, and I'll share that with you, and you can share it with everyone.
Yes, that sounds great. And we'll put that with this video so people can access that right on the Facebook video. So it has been a pleasure having you here today and talking about a really important topic.
Thank you.
So thank you for you and your mom and your dad bringing this gift to the world, and hoping that it makes families having an easier time parenting their children.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Well, when in doubt, never underestimate the power of prayer. You are being heard and listened to throughout the universe, and it always responds with infinite and eternal love. Remember to go inside and listen to the whispers of heaven. You are always being heard. God bless you. I love you. God bless. God bless. Bye-bye.
Listening to another fabulous program on Angel Heart Radio. Our goal is to remind you of how much you matter in the world, and to let you know that we appreciate who you are in the world. You can check out who's on, when we're on, and who our guests are at angelheartradio.com. Everything is there. It's all just one click away. Angel Heart Radio programs are powerful tools to help you in your life and your life experience. They are not intended, nor should they, be used to replace your medical or legal advice. Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is brought to you by AngelLight777.com. The views and opinions expressed by Angel Heart Radio hosts, guests, co-hosts and associates should not be construed as advice from Angel Heart Radio.